This Thursday, December 12th at 7:30 p.m. at the Centennial Concert Hall, there will be an unforgettable evening filled with the timeless music of John Denver. Called A Rocky Mountain High Christmas, this concert will highlight the music of Denver in all its glory, featuring not only his hits, but also Christmas songs from his iconic special that he did with the Muppets. This tribute to Denver is a genuine celebration. Rather than trying to imitate the legendary artist, the concert will focus solely on the music, making use of arrangements that were done by his longtime friend and arranger, Lee Holdridge. The concert is headlined by Canadian recording artists Rick and Steve Worrall. They will be joined by the Winnipeg Youth Choir, an Canadian all-star band, and a symphony made up of musicians from across Canada. This is going to be a spectacular holiday concert that celebrates the music of a singer and songwriter that helped define a generation, a musician who was and is beloved by all. And joining me here over Zoom to talk about A Rocky Mountain High Christmas, I am joined by recording artist and lead vocalist for the concert, Rick Worrall, and John Denver's longtime friend and arranger, Lee Holdridge. Hello to you both. So nice to have you here.
Oh, back.
Hello, I'm
Yeah.
back. Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's
Rick, I want to start with you. You grew up listening to John Denver's music and you consider him to be an influence on your own writing and performing career. Take us back to the beginning. What made you want to put together a John Denver show, and when did the first John Denver concert happen for you?
Well, I think, from the very beginning, when I first heard John on the radio and of course then bought records, I fell in love with his musical style. I fell in love with his voice, his writing. He had a great, just a sense of lyrics and melody were just incredible. And it really resonated with me. And consequently, when I started my professional career, I ended up doing a lot of John Denver's music. I was playing clubs, I was playing bars and things like that. And it was that time, it was the mid 70s, and it was just like I say, it was an easy thing for me to do. Growing up, learning the guitar, cutting my teeth with a lot of John's music, and of course some of the other folk artists like Gordon Lightfoot and Cat Stevens and Harry Chapin and all that. But John's
Mhm.
music always sort of, to me, rose to the top. There was something about it that just clicked in my, I say in my soul, but it was definitely something like that. And
Mhm.
the concert, I think, happened in 2018. I think that was the first time we did.
yes,
Yeah,
I think so. Yes.
we started this rescue project of John's symphony scores. I think it was the end of 2016 that I contacted Lee
Yes.
about this idea, and
Yes.
then we spent about a year and a half reconstructing the
Mhm.
enough material to do a concert.
Yeah. And so talk about that process. Yeah, I was reading about that. Rick, you like entered it into the Sibelius notation software, and you did it with Lee's help. Lee, what kinds of things did you help him out with, and how did that process work?
Well, I had to go find all the original handwritten manuscripts that I had because the John Denver Management Company, after John died, had thrown all that stuff away, much to
Mm.
my horror and many people's horror. And if we ever find that guy, we're going to strangle him. But But fortunately, I kept all my original handwritten manuscripts, but I didn't have the parts. I just had the scores. So I told Rick we have to create new scores and put the parts on. And so he suggested putting it all on Sibelius, and I of course know Sibelius. So I thought that's perfect. So that's what we did.
Yeah, and little did
Mhm.
I know what kind of undertaking that was, because I'm not trained. I'm a musician by ear, and so I didn't have any notation whatsoever. And of course, I'm sure poor Lee was, and still is, because there's so many mistakes that I make, and so I would basically take his manuscript, put it into Sibelius, and then send it to him, and he would send the corrections to
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
and I'm sure he was chuckling all the
No,
time.
no, but we went through it. We went through everything and gradually made sure that everything was correct, everything was there.
Mhm.
So we have all those original arrangements. And it was something that was very important to John because he really loved the orchestra and he loved having the orchestra not only on his records, but he wanted to tour with symphonies and everything. So we are, in a sense, recreating his world.
Mm-hmm. And from what I've been reading, these Denver concerts, they are massively successful. How does that feel for the both of you to know that these concerts have gone over so well with audiences?
Well, from my standpoint, first of all, working with Lee, it's a little surreal, standing on stage and singing this material that I love so much, and then turning around and seeing Lee there many times. We don't do all concerts don't have Lee. I mean,
Yeah.
we do the symphony ones. The one that's coming into Winnipeg, Lee won't be there this time, but we have, like I say, an ensemble that represents, and he is represented by video, like he's talking about,
Mm,
some of the
mm.
experiences that he's had. But
Mm,
it's one of those things, it's surreal. And I feel very blessed by it. But and Lee has his own experience with that
Yeah.
as well.
yeah.
Well, Rick and I made a pact. I said, you can perform these songs, but you're guitar players and you have to learn to play the exact harmonies and voicings that John played because John was a really excellent guitar player. So
Mm.
they really did woodshed this and learn how to play the guitar parts exactly the way John played them. So it's very, very, very much an echo of that time brought to life now in a new way.
It's amazing. Lee, you were very good friends with John Denver. Please tell me he was as nice a guy in real life as he was on the TV when I grew up with him.
Oh yes, definitely. He was very much, he had his demons and he had his problems. He had a little bit of a drinking problem every now and then and he stuff like that, but he never brought it to the studio. When he
Mm,
walked in to do music, it was like being in a temple for him. He was just enthralled. He loved the musicianship, and he was a very generous and kind person and very open. Anybody could talk to him. Anybody could walk up to him and talk to him. So yes, he was very much what you see, is what you get.
mm. And I'm just sort of thinking, like when you were working with John Denver and putting together the orchestra arrangements, did he let you have free reign and just trust that you would do a good job, or was he picky about that kind of thing? Like,
Well,
how was that collaboration?
no, he trusted me. He trusted me. At first, I did it all by myself, but he got more and more interested in it after a while. He'd say to me, "Oh, maybe we could have a French horn line here, or how about an oboe line over here?" And I'd say, "Great, let's
Mm,
do it." But he also loved what I brought to it because I brought my orchestral experience to it, and it enthralled him. He just loved it. But he did learn more and more about it as he went along and became kind of very interested in what all the lines that were being played were, you know.
mm, mm. I want to turn to Thursday's concert. Can you both talk about some of the tunes that people can expect to hear? Can you sort of rattle off
Yeah,
some of
sure.
the?
Well, I mean, it's always a challenge when you put together a Christmas concert also with his hits. And one of the challenges that we've, sort of tried to overcome was what songs do you drop in order to put in a Christmas song?
Right, right.
He had so many wonderful, wonderful hits, right? So, we cover off the major songs that people know, Take Me Home Country Roads,
Mm,
Rocky Mountain High.
Mountain High, yeah.
And then we put it together a medley of music that just are his hits to try to get as many in as we possibly can. And then surrounded by the Christmas music that he's well known for, like you said, the Muppets and of course his
Hmm.
Rocky Mountain Christmas album. That was
Hmm.
to me, it's such an iconic album, that
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be great. The concert has everything. There's a band that tours with you. You're going to be joined by the Winnipeg Youth Choir and an orchestra. Can you talk about who's in the band? Like, is it only instrumentalists or is it backup vocalists as well? Like,
Oh, yeah,
what kind?
yeah, it's complete. The band represents basically we have keyboards, three guitars, a fiddle player, a banjo, percussion, bass, and then we augment that with coming into Winnipeg. It'll be a 10-piece ensemble. It'll be mostly strings, but there is a horn and a flute. We're
Mm,
using 5 members of local Winnipeg symphony people there. And we have a ensemble that we travel with that is made up of players from both Alberta and British Columbia. And so it's really quite a rounded, it's really
Mm.
quite nice. I think people are going to be quite surprised. It's a very full sound. Even when we do like, I call this the scaled version, but it's
Mm,
still so big sounding. And especially with that many strings and everything, it sounds wonderful.
Well, if I can chime in,
yeah.
not only Rick sings most of the songs, but several of the band members sing as well. They're all good singers. I kind of see this as a repertory company doing John Denver. It's great because you get all these different colors and different personalities, and I think it makes it even better that way. And don't you have two opera singers, and we're including a couple of opera singers because John started to make that bridge with Placido Domingo and Perhaps Love. And so we've brought opera singers back into the mix, and it shows you that his music can play like classical music.
We're very fortunate. We have two wonderful local Winnipeg residents there joining us. We have Laura Sikovic, and we
Mhm.
also have Nolan Keller joining us. And mainly too, because, and we talk about this in the show, Lee did a project about 7 years ago called The Great Voices Sing John Denver. It had no guitar and it was all symphony. And it was basically opera singers from
Mm,
around the world,
yeah,
including Placido and
yeah,
some amazing opera
yeah,
talent. So to include that, and it really shows how John's music transcended the
yeah.
genres.
It's quite a
Yeah.
rainbow of styles, and everything from the hoedown fiddle to opera is amazing. You think about that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he was just a supreme musician. I mean, just a wonderful, wonderful player in person. Uh, the concert is going to be amazing. Lee, for you, what has been the most rewarding thing about the fact that this John Denver Christmas show has been so successful?
Well, I never expected this 10 years ago. I thought maybe the door was closed and it was gone. But I always had said to John many times, I said, your songs are going to become like world folk music. They're going to be known way past their time. And he'd always look at me kind of surprised. I said, "No, I'm telling you, at the time I said Americana, but now I'm saying worldwide, because these
Mm.
songs have gone all over the world and they're very iconic. And so I knew that was coming, but I never realized that I'd wind up working with Rick and conducting these scores many years later. So one night, walking home from one of the concert halls back to the hotel, I looked up. I said, "Hey, John, I'm still working for you."
And Rick, as the person who put it together and who's singing, what do you hope audiences are going to take away from Thursday's concert?
Well, I think, I think John's message, there's so many different things about John and, his personality, his career, and the direction he was going that is so important today. I think all the craziness that's going on in the world, and, there's something very basic about John's music.
Mm.
And it sort of brings us down to that ground roots level. I think where we almost need to get back to. I don't want to call it simplistic because it's not about simplicity. It's about that heartfelt music.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mm.
He loved beauty. He loved
Yeah.
lyricism. And that's something that is hard to get these days.
Yeah, and he loved nature, and it would made
He
played
loved
such a
nature, all of that,
and,
all of
and he
that.
yeah.
was a tremendous philanthropist as well. I mean,
Yeah.
he got behind so many
Hmm.
worthwhile causes.
Hmm.
I mean, he was one of the driving forces for, the AIDS for Africa and making, that and getting that help to the people that needed it there. And he supported a lot of different organizations.
Hmm.
And he
Lee,
loved Canada too, by the way. He spent a lot of time up here. And, it's in quite a few of his songs. If you listen carefully, you'll hear a lot of mention of places like Jasper and the Rocky Mountains up here. And what else? Cold Nights in
All
Canada. That's
nights in
the opening of
Canada.
one of the songs.
Yeah.
Oh, he spent a lot of time up here. I did recordings in Vancouver with him too. We used musicians there on some of the records. So this was part of his world, very much so. And he skied up here all the time,
yeah,
let me tell you.
It was
yeah.
interesting because one of the places we played on tour, I had a gentleman come up to me and he said, "There's a local pub that John would go to. It's like a very iconic little pub, and I think it's either Grand Prairie or something like that. And there's pictures on the wall of John there and the
Yeah.
patrons that were there at the time and everything. So it's kind of cool."
It's going to be great. Lee and Rick, this has been so great to have you here over Zoom to talk about a Rocky Mountain High Christmas. I'm sure the show on Thursday is going to be super fun and super entertaining. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me today.
Pleasure.
It's been
Thank you.
great.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Mhm. For our Classic 107 listeners, a Rocky Mountain High Christmas featuring the music of John Denver takes place this Thursday, December 12th at the Centennial Concert Hall at 7:30 p.m. For more details, visit centennialconcerthall.com or visit classic107.com. I have embedded a direct link to the show page in the article that is up about the concert there. Lee and Rick, thanks again.
Awesome.
you.
Thanks so
Bye.
much. Take care.